Good morning, Morai Rabotai. Bruchim Abayim. We are continuing on Masechet Succah. We are on Daf Nun Dalet, Amud Aleph, 16 lines down from the top of the Amud. Today's Amud is being learned as a Zchut Rufa Shelema for Rachel Bat Edna, Rachel Simcha Bat Nahid, Michael Ben Nahid, Esther Bracha Bat Chaya, Rabbi Avraham Ben Tashgol, Shira Bat Chemda. That should all have Refuah Shelema Be'ezrat Hashem. Amen. This Amud is also being learned. Leilu Nishmat Parvin Bat Shlomo. This week's learning of the community has been dedicated to the Zchut of Shea family, and Dayan family, and Kohen family. This should be an ultimate Zchut for all the Mishpachot. Amen. So says the Gemara, we are by the one dot that you have on the 16th line, Ki Ata Rab Acha Bar Chanina Midroma, a braita that is related to the number of tkiot, of the blasts, of the trumpets, of the chatzotzrot that you had on a regular basis in the mikdash. Now we have been discussing what is the minimum, what is the maximum, and the Mishnah mentioned that the minimum that they had was 21 on a regular basis, that 3 of them was for Ptichat HaSha'arim, opening the gates, really starting the daily avodah of the Beit HaMikdash to announce the beginning of the day to the Leviim and Kohanim to get to their works, and then 9 and 9 by Tamid Shel Shachar and Tamid Shel Ban Harbaim. Those are the minimum obligatory korbanot on daily basis in the Mikdash. So hence you have 9 plus 9, 18 plus 3, 21, and the maximum, said the Mishnah, was 48, and that is going to be the major topic of today. If you have other instances that we could have 48, or maybe even we could find instances that were higher than 48, which would obviously naturally challenge the words of the Mishnah. So says the Gemara, Rab Acha Bar Chanina, when he came from the south, he came with his braita in his hand. What does the braita say? Uvnei Aaron HaKohanim yitkeu b'chasosrot. So this is of course a pasuk in Bamidbar Perek Yud pasuk Chet that discusses what exactly what we discussed, that it was not the Levim, it was not the Yisrael Meyuchasim or Avdei HaKohanim that blew the trumpets. It's not like the Kleshir of the Leviim, but rather it was only and only Kohanim who could blow the trumpets, the chatzotzrot. Uvnei Aaron HaKohanim yitkeu b'chatzotzrot v'hayu lachem lechukat olam ledorotechem. So says the braita of Rab Acha Bar Chanina. The Gemara says Rab Acha Bar Chanina brought this braita who says, well, why do you have to say Ma Talmud Lomar yitkeu? Why do you have to say that the Kohanim should blow these trumpets in Chasosrot? The pasuk already says, Utka'atem b'chasosrot al orotechem v'al zivchei shalmechem. And this is like literally two pasukim away. It's right there in Perek Yud of Bamidbar. So why do you have to say it again? Uvnei Aaron HaKohanim yitkeu b'chasosrot. You already says Utka'atem b'chasosrot. So says the Gemara, the reason that it says yitkeu, umat Talmud lomar yitkeu, hakol lefi hamusafin, because it is coming to teach you that the more musafim you have, the more tkiot you will have. It's not that on the concept of korban musaf you will be blowing 9 chasotrot, 9 blows, but every musaf that you add, you're going to have a set of 9 of its own blowing of the trumpets. So says the Gemara, Lomar shtokin al kol musaf umusaf. It's coming to teach you. Himself, he explained it. Hu amar la vehu so hu tani la vehu amar. Now he brought this braita and he explained it. Lomar shtokin al kol musaf umusaf. It's coming to teach you that you will have a set of chatzotzrot on every musaf. Musaf. Every korban musaf has its own. Now says the Gemara, Tinan, we learned in our Mishnah, now that we have Rab Acha Bar Chanina, now we have the tools to start dealing with our Mishnah. So back to our Mishnah, who says the maximum is 48. Says the Gemara, wait a second. Tanan, Erev Shabbat Shebetoch HaChag, Erev Shabbat that was in Chag HaSukkot was the maximum, was 48. Hayusham Memchet, there was 48 blows of trumpets. Ve'imita, if that's correct, if Rab Acha Bar Chanina is correct, that on every Musaf you will be doing its own set of Chatzosrot, Litni Shabbat Shebetoch HaChag. Then, why do you have to say Erev Shabbat Shebetoch HaChag? And we counted, right? Erev Shabbat Shebetoch HaChag. You remember how it was? Well, we had the 3 in the morning, and then you had the process of Nisuch HaMayim, the 12 over there, and then we had the 6 of Erev Shabbat, calling off people from working and announcing Shabbat, so we have 48. Says the Gemara, why do you have to say that? You know what you should say? You should say the Shabbat of Chag HaSukkot. Every Chag HaSukkot, you have a Shabbat in there, and that Shabbat is going to have not 48, but 51. So that would be the maximum. Why do you have to tell me 48? So how does that work? How does the Shabbat, so you have the Korban Musaf of the Chag, you have Korban Musaf of Shabbat. And Shabbat and the Chag, both of them have Musaf. So obviously, now because it's no longer Erev Shabbat, you're missing how many? 6. There's no announcement of Shabbat. But how many are you getting in? 9. So you add 3, right? Last time we checked, 48 plus 3 is 51. So the maximum should be 51. Right? You start scratching your head. Why is that the maximum? The 48. It says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Zera answers this. Lefishen tokin leptichat sha'arim b'Shabbat. It says, simple answer. Because the very first 3 that you would do for the beginning, for announcement of the beginning of the day, ptichat sha'arim, you didn't have on Shabbat. Why didn't you have that on Shabbat? Because he holds, Rabbi Zera holds, that those 3 are not the avodah. That's not what you would do as a service of the Beit HaMikdash, like you have to blow the trumpets by the korbanot. That's just an alarm clock. You basically announcing, Rabotai, Higia Zeman, that you have to get up and serve in the Beit HaMikdash. And if it's not a mandatory blow, guess what happens on Shabbat? Well, it's muktzeh. You can't just blow something that's not mandatory on Shabbat, right? So therefore, you have to take that 3 out and only do the mandatory blows. So correct, you are going to have 9 extra for Korban Musaf Shel Shabbat, on top of Musaf of the Chag, but you lose 9 as well. You lose 3 in the beginning, 6 for announcing Shabbat that you don't have anymore. So therefore, you're correct. You have 2 cases now with 48. One is Erev Shabbat, Shechal Yod Bechag, which is the case of the Mishnah. The other one is Shabbat Shebetoch HaChag, which you don't have 9, but you have the 9 of Musafim. 48, both of them. So it takes the edge out of the question, because you can't now be surprised. Why don't you say a case that's better, that's 51 blows, instead of you saying maximum is 48? But nevertheless, you still are left with the question of why don't you say both, right? So Rava asks a question on this suggestion of Rabbi Zera. Says Rava, Amar Rava, who is this person that is grinding to make flour, but he doesn't care what he puts in there? It's only kemach, it's only like nice flour, or is it also has a lot of shells and trash mixed with it? So you're basically saying, like, you're saying an answer, but you're not thinking about the answer you're giving. Says the Gemara, first of all, when the Mishnah says that they would do the 3 initial blows to start the day. He says, Bechol Yom, every day. Every day includes Shabbat as well. How can you say that when the Mishnah says every day they would do 3 to start the day, it doesn't include Shabbat? So it says Rava, it definitely included Shabbat as well. That's first of all. Secondly, says the Gemara says Rava, Ve'od inami ka'adadaninu litni Shabbat shebetoch hachag hayu shama 48. Says Rava, if it's true, even if it's 48, not 51, you still should say that Shabbat shebetoch hachag was 48 as well. So says the Gemara, the shamat minetarti. It would be the appropriate thing, says Rava, to mention 48. If Shabbat shebetoch hachag would be 48, you should have mentioned it, because first of all, you learn from it 2 chidushei halachot. A, you learn from it the halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, if you remember from yesterday, was the one that holds that you do not blow shofar on Ma'ala Asirit, on the 10th step, but rather on top of the Mizbeach. So you will learn that. The Shamat Mina, and you also will learn from it the Rabbi Acha bar Chanina, this halacha of Rabbi Acha bar Chanina that we just mentioned right now. So it says Rava, that's not the answer. Let me tell you what the answer is. In other words, back to our question. Rava just rejected categorically the answer of Rabbi Zera. So now we're back to our question. Shabbat shebetoch hachag, it should be 51. And if it's 51, that should be the case mentioned in the Mishnah, not Erev Shabbat that was 48. Correct? So it says Rava, let me tell you why. The Mishnah does not mention Shabbat shebetoch hachag for a very simple reason. Ela amar Rava, this is like a oops reason, right? Lefi she'en tok'in lemilui mayim beShabbat. Do you remember what happened with Simchat Beit HaShoeva on Shabbat? Can you go down from the Chel, going out to the Har HaBayit and go draw the water on Shabbat? Can you do that? Absolutely not. Can't carry. So what did they do? You remember the whole cheshbon of they would do it from Erev Shabbat and put it in this gold jug and cover it? You remember? So that causes that when Shabbat morning you wake up, do you have the 3 for opening the Sha'ar Nikanor? No. Do you have the 3 for opening the Sha'ar HaMizrach? No. Do you have the 3 for drawing the water? No. So you're at least missing 9. Maybe you're also missing Al Gabe Mizbeach. That's a debatable thing. Says the Gemara, the Batzri Tuva, you're missing a whole lot of blows when you're talking about Shabbat morning for Nisuch HaMayim. The maximum you have is the 3 for on top of the Mizbeach. So therefore, you want to have a cheshbon that you have 51. You, at the very most, you have 51 minus 9.
42.
Right? So says the Gemara, Velitni nami Rosh Hashanah shechal liot b'Shabbat. The Gemara says, fine, you're saying good. But now I'm on a roll to ask questions, right? I'm going through my mind all the days of the year that could possibly have 48. In other words, why are you telling me Erev Shabbat shechal liot bechag? Erev Shabbat of Chag HaSukkot. I right away found another one, and that is a Shabbat that is also Rosh Hashanah, or Rosh Hashanah is also Shabbat, right? It happens all the time. So says the Gemara, if you have a Shabbat that's Rosh Hashanah, then you have the ikatlata musafin. How many korban musafs do you have? 3. You have 3 because Rosh Hashanah is Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah also happens to be a Rosh Chodesh, right? The whole she'ela in the nusach of the tefillah, do you say Musfei Yom or Musaf Yom, right? Because really, it had Musafei. And then it's also Shabbat. So you have 3 sets, not 3 sets, but a set of 3 Musafim. So that is 27 right there for the 9 for each one of them, according to Rabbi Acha bar Chanina. and you have the 21 regular daily blows of Chatzos Rot. So 21 plus 27, that's 48.
So you had 42. We just got down to 42. Plus 9 should be 51.
What's plus 9?
The 9 for Rosh Chodesh. We just knocked down the 51.
Yeah, but she's saying for Rosh Hashanah. That's in Chag. You have the 3 of Nisuch HaMayim. Gabei HaMizbeach. You don't have that here, right? But at the very least, over here you have 48. So why do you tell me in our Mishnah that the day that they had the most in the whole year was Erev Shabbat that fell inside Chag HaSukkot? Here it is. Rosh Hashanah that falls on Shabbat.
Yes.
Right? They are also 48.
You don't have that first 3 also here.
Well, no, that we knocked out. Rava already knocked that out.
Did 18 and
I know we're asking to Rava.
Oh, okay.
Rava is the one that says, Rabbi Zera, you're grinding and you're not thinking. Right? Bechol yom tenan. He says every day you had those 3 initial ones. Rava does not hold of Rabbi Zera. He says the Gemara. So Musaf, Ikat Tlata Musaf, Musaf de Rosh Hashanah, Musaf de Rosh Chodesh, and Musaf de Shabbat, says the Gemara. Have 3 Musafim. 3 times 9, 27, plus 21 is 48. So says the Gemara, no, Erev Shabbat shebetoch HaChag yisderich. Says, correct. Rosh Hashanah, the falls to be on Shabbat, also is 48. But you have to know, we have a reason to tell the case of Erev Shabbat shechal liyot bechag versus Rosh Hashanah. Because case of Rosh Hashanah, the fast to be on Shabbat is pashut, right? Every 5-year-old could add up 999 and 21, 48. There's no chidush that you're teaching me, right? Aside from Rabbi Achar Chanina that every musaf gets its own set of 9. But the Erev Shabbat shebetoch HaChag, he teaches you a meaningful chidush. Because first of all, now we are learning that the halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov that held you do not blow on Ma'ala Asirit and you do al Gabei Mizbeach. That you could only tell me if you pick the case that is in Chag HaSukkot, which has Nisuch HaMayim, right? On Shabbat Rosh Hashanah there's no Nisuch HaMayim. So you have a valuable chidush to teach me. The halacha is Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov that you would not blow any trumpets on Ma'ala Asirit, but rather on top of the Mizbeach. And says the Gemara, that is the reason that we chose this case versus Rosh Hashanah that falls to be on Shabbat. Says the Gemara, Atu mi ka'amar litni ha velo litni ha. Gemara says basically, you're not understanding my question. I'm not telling you, don't tell me the case of the Erev that falls to be on Chag, the Erev Shabbat that falls to be on Chag. I'm telling you, tell me that case and tell me this case. In other words, tell me there are 2 days during the year that could be 48. One is Erev Shabbat that falls to be on Chag HaSukkot, and the other one is Rosh Hashanah that falls to be on Shabbat. Why don't you tell me both? The Gemara says, Tara v'Shayir. Our Braita Erachinami, says the Gemara Erachinami. The Braita that is, the Mishnah rather, that is mentioning Erev Shabbat shechal liyot bechag, he holds also of Rosh Hashanah that falls to be on Shabbat, but it's not going to tell you all the cases. It's just said one case. Tana v'Shayir. He left you a case that he didn't mention. Now, time for a Shas-wide klal. Whenever you have such a case, the Gemara says, well, you need a precedent for this. If I know that there's another case that you also left out, so it's 3 cases, you're making one example of 3, fine, I understand. But if this is the only case, just mention both. The Tana is not going to leave out one case if that's the only case. Right? You need precedent for it. So therefore, the Gemara naturally, obviously, is going to ask the question when you say, oh, Tana v'Shayir, the Mishnah didn't mention all cases. The Gemara always going to naturally ask, my Shayir, the high Shayir. What else did it leave out that he left out this one? So now you're compelled to find another yet case that it would be 48 and the Mishnah didn't mention. So says the Gemara, my Shayir, the high Shayir, Shayir, Erev HaPesach. Says the Gemara, it left the Erev Pesach of every single year. Now, what is that about? So the Gemara says in Masechet Succah, Daf Samech Dalit, that every Korban Pesach that they would bring would have 3 times that they would say Hallel. In other words, the Kohanim and Leviim would be at work, hard at work, to make sure Korban Pesach was done efficiently. And this is, it's just awesome to read the Mishnayot about Erev Pesach, how it was as a whole system, how they were standing, and the blood things were passed between them, and you can't spill even a drop if a drop of it goes on the clothing, the garments of the Kohanim. You talk about shechita of this thousands and thousands of animals, right? And it's so fast and quick pouring on top of his back, come back the blood. It's a whole process. Now, during the process, they were saying Hallel. The Levim were saying Hallel, and they were playing music as well, playing the trumpets. The Kohanim were playing the trumpets. As well, we mentioned, right, they have a minimum of 2, upward of 120. So it was a process, and when you finished Hallel and they're still shechting Korban Pesach, what would you do? Well, you would do Hallel again, right? Start the tape over again. And they would do it 3 times. And every time that you said Hallel, the Kohanim would blow Tki'ah, Teruah, Tki'ah. Okay? So if you have 3 times that you said Hallel by Korban Pesach, 3 times 3 would be 9. So every set of Korban Pesach, you would have 9 blows of Chatzosrot in it, aside from all the other instruments that may have been there, and the singing of the Levi'im, but there was 9 blows of the Chatzosrot. Now, that's 9. How many times did they bring Korban Pesach and Erev Pesach? 3 times. There was 3 kitot, 3 groups of people who brought Korban Pesach. The Zrizim Makdimim LeMitzvot. The first cat was the people with alacrity. They came early on. They would fill up the area. They would close the doors. They would check all the Korban Pesachs, and they would go out. The second cat would come in. They would do, and then the third cat would call them kat ha'atzlanim, the Gemara says. They call them the lazy ones, right? The lazy ones would come in and do their Korban Pesach. Well, it was never more than 3. Okay? So 3 times 9 is 27. And you have, it's a regular, regular day. Erev Pesach is a regular day. So you have 21 of opening the doors, 9 of Korban Tamid Shel Shachar, and 9 of Tamid Shel Ben Ha'arbaim. So 21 plus 27 is, is 48. So one says, I found it. So you have 3 cases now. You have the Erev Pesach, the initial case, Erev Shabbat, that's Chal Liyot Bechag, Erev Shabbat of Chag HaSukkot, which is the example of the Mishnah, and the Tana left 2 cases out. Well, what are the 2 cases that he left out? Rosh Hashanah, that falls to be on Shabbat. You have 3 Musafim, 27 plus 21, 48, and every Erev Pesach, which he had 3 Kitot of Makrive Korban Pesach, 9 plus 9 plus 9, 27, plus 21 regular ones of 3 opening of the gates, and Tamid Shel Shachar 9, Tamid Shel Marahamim 9. That's 9 plus 9, plus 9 plus 9 plus 9 plus 3 is 48, right? So we have 3 cases. It says, you ask me, my Shayir, the Shayir is Erev Pesach. Who could ask a bomb kasha on this? Everyone. Because we know that in Masechet Pesachim, Rabbi Yehuda, who we just said we are going according to Rabbi Yehuda, right? Remember, we're going according to Rabbi Yehuda. And Rabbi Yehuda in Masechet Pesachim, right, I already saw everyone was nodding their heads. Rabbi, you're missing the Shitat Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda over there holds that Kata Shlishi, the lazy ones, right? The third group never finished even the first Halel. You're telling me 3 Halels because there's still so much Korban Pesachs left. The third group was always a very small group. So it was less than a third of the crowd that you had for the first group and second group. So therefore, very quickly, the Korban Pesachs were finished. As the Levim are still singing the first Hallel, it was finished. So the only reason that you have 9 is because you have 3 sets of Hallel by every group, right? Here you only had 1 Hallel. How many is that? Tkiyah, Teruah, Tkiyah, Chazak Baruch. So you're missing how many?
18.
6. No, you have the first 9 and the second 9, right? It's 18. By the third group, you only have 3. So it's not 27, but it's 21. So really, it's 21 plus 21 is 42. Don't get too excited, right? So you don't have this third kid according to Rabbi Yehuda, right? Says the Gemara. Lav shiurau. This is not the shiur. This is not the case because the Rabbi Yehuda. This is Rabbi Yehuda who says the Amar mimehem shel kat shlishit. In all the history of the third group that came every year, never did it last. Even the full Hallel. Lo higia lomar ahavti kishma Hashem. They Levim never got to saying the psukim of Ahavti Kishma Hashem et Kol Tachanunai, the first set of Hallel. So says the Gemara, Miperesh hayu ama muatin, because there were not a lot of people there. So therefore, it was fine. So says the Gemara, the Lok Rabbi Yehuda, first of all, says the Gemara, you could be not like Rabbi Yehuda if you say that it was a full 27. Wait a second. Who says this is Rabbi Yehuda? Maybe this Tana that we said follows the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda is not Rabbi Yehuda himself. It's someone that holds like Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah, but in Masechet Pesachim doesn't hold like Rabbi Yehuda, and he holds that they had 3 full kitot of Makrivei Korban Pesach. So you really had 27 by Erev Pesach. That's the suggestion of the Gemara. Maybe this Tana held like him in one thing and argued with him in a different. So I have to come up with a different, a different left out case that has 48. Says the Gemara, Shayir Erev HaPesach Shechal Lihyot Be'erev Shabbat. An Erev Pesach that fell to be an Erev Shabbat. So even if you want to say that this case is Rabbi Yehuda, so you only end up with 42 because you have the 21 of regular day and you have 18 of the first and second groups of Korban Pesach and only 3 of the third group of Korban Pesach, right? So you end up with how many? 42. But if Erev Pesach happens to also be an Erev Shabbat, so then you have 6 extras for what? Announcing Shabbat. Right? 3 for stopping them from working and 3 for announcing the coming of Shabbat. So 42 plus 6, 48. Says the Gemara, Afik sheet, V'ayil sheet. You lose 6 because you don't have the 2 sets of Hallel for the third group, but you have 6 extra ones for announcing the Shabbat. So therefore, we proved our case that you have 3 incidents that you have 27 extra, which altogether would give you 48, and therefore our Mishnah chose only 1 out of 3, and you could safely say, my Shayir Dai Shayir, he left out conveniently 2 out of 3, and gave you only 1 example of them, which is the Erev Shabbat Shechal Liyot Bechag, and Be'ezrat Hashem will continue in the days to come. Chazak Baruch.